In the vast tapestry of religious history, few figures have captured the imagination and devotion of believers quite like the Virgin Mary. As the mother of Jesus Christ, she has been revered, venerated, and mythologized across countless generations. However, the true story of Mary, as depicted in the biblical accounts, is often obscured by layers of tradition, theology, and popular misconceptions. Let us begin our journey by examining the earliest accounts of Mary's life, as recorded in the Gospels of the New Testament. The Gospels of Matthew and Luke provide the most comprehensive narratives of her story, offering a glimpse into her humble origins and the extraordinary events that would shape her destiny. According to these accounts, Mary was a young woman betrothed to a carpenter named Joseph, living in the small town of Nazareth. It was here, in the midst of her ordinary life, that the divine intervention would occur. The Gospels recount the miraculous visitation of the angel Gabriel, who delivered the news that Mary had been chosen to bear the Messiah, the Son of God. This Immaculate Conception, a foundational tenet of Christian theology, has long been the subject of intense debate and speculation. Some scholars have questioned the historical accuracy of this account, suggesting that it may have been a later theological construct rather than a factual event. Others have argued that the language used in the Gospels, particularly the Greek term parthenos, translated as a virgin, may have been misinterpreted or misunderstood. Nonetheless, the belief in Mary's perpetual virginity has become a central pillar of Catholic and Orthodox Christian traditions. This notion, however, is not without its challenges when confronted with the biblical evidence. The Gospels themselves mention that Jesus had siblings, raising questions about the validity of the perpetual virginity doctrine. As we delve deeper into the Gospels, we uncover further complexities and contradictions surrounding Mary's role and status. While the Gospels portray her as a devout and obedient servant of God, they also present her as a flawed and human figure, struggling with the weight of her divine calling. For instance, the Gospel of Luke recounts a curious incident where the young Mary questions the angel's message, asking, "How can this be, since I am a virgin?" This moment of doubt and uncertainty challenges the common perception of Mary as a purely pious and submissive figure, revealing a more complex and nuanced character. Moreover, the Gospels suggest that Mary's relationship with her son, Jesus, was not always harmonious. There are instances where she appears to misunderstand or even doubt his divine mission, as evident in the account of Jesus' lost childhood and the wedding at Cana, where Mary's intervention prompts Jesus' reluctant display of his miraculous powers. These subtle yet significant details disrupt the idealized image of Mary as the perfect, all-knowing Mother of God. They suggest a more human and relatable figure, one who grappled with the profound implications of her role and the challenges of raising the Messiah. As we move beyond the Gospels and explore the broader biblical tradition, the portrait of Mary becomes even more multifaceted. The Book of Acts and the Epistles of Paul make scant mention of her, highlighting her relative insignificance within the early Christian movement, at least in the eyes of the authors. This contrast with the later veneration of Mary as the Queen of Heaven and the Mother of God in Catholic and Orthodox theology raises questions about the origins and evolution of Marian devotion. It suggests that the exalted status of Mary emerged not from the biblical texts themselves, but rather from the theological developments and cultural influences that shaped the Church in the centuries that followed. Furthermore, the limited references to Mary in the Bible raise intriguing questions about her role and significance within the early Christian community. Why was she not more prominently featured in the foundational narratives of the faith? Did the authors of the Gospels and Epistles intentionally downplay her importance, or was her marginalization a result of the patriarchal biases and power structures that dominated the ancient world? These questions lead us to confront another forbidden truth about Mary, the potential for a more egalitarian and empowered interpretation of her story. Feminist theologians and scholars have argued that, despite the patriarchal constraints of her time, Mary's experiences and actions can be read as subversive and transformative. For instance, the Magnificat, Mary's song of praise recorded in the Gospel of Luke, has been interpreted as a bold proclamation of social justice and the reversal of societal hierarchies. In this hymn, Mary declares that God has brought down the powerful from their thrones, and lifted up the lowly. He has filled the hungry with good things, and sent the rich away empty. Such radical sentiments challenge the traditional depiction of Mary as a meek and submissive figure, and instead suggest a woman who was acutely aware of the transformative power of her divine calling. This alternative reading of Mary's story opens up the possibility of reclaiming her as a symbol of empowerment and liberation, particularly for marginalized communities within the Christian tradition. As we continue to explore the forbidden truths about Mary, we must also confront the complex and often contentious relationship between the biblical accounts and the extensive traditions and legends that have developed around her over the centuries. The Catholic and Orthodox churches, in particular, have elaborated extensively on the life and significance of Mary, expanding beyond the scope of the biblical narratives. These traditions have introduced a wealth of apocryphal and extra-biblical literature, including the Proto-Evangelium of James, the Infancy Gospels, and the Assumption of the Virgin, which offer additional details and interpretations of Mary's life and legacy. While these traditions have undoubtedly enriched the spiritual and devotional aspects of Marian veneration, they have also introduced a degree of complexity and ambiguity that can obscure the original biblical accounts. The intricate web of theological debates, miraculous apparitions, and cultural influences that have shaped the veneration of Mary over the centuries can sometimes overshadow the foundational scriptural sources. Furthermore, the veneration of Mary has also been intertwined with the power dynamics and political agendas of the Church. The dogmas of the Immaculate Conception and the Assumption of the Virgin, for example, were not defined until the 19th and 20th centuries, respectively, reflecting the evolving theological and institutional concerns of the Catholic Church. These historical developments challenge the notion of Mary as a timeless and unchanging figure, and invite us to consider the ways in which her image and significance have been shaped by the shifting priorities and agendas of the Christian tradition. As we grapple with these forbidden truths, it is essential to recognize that the story of Mary is not merely a matter of historical or theological interest. Her legacy continues to hold immense cultural and political significance, particularly in the realm of gender and power dynamics within the Church and society at large. The veneration of Mary has often been used to reinforce traditional gender roles and to uphold patriarchal structures within the Christian tradition. The idealized image of Mary as the pure, obedient, and self-sacrificing mother has been used to prescribe and enforce certain expectations and limitations on women's roles and autonomy. At the same time, Mary has also been embraced by feminist and liberation theologians as a symbol of empowerment and resistance. By reclaiming her story and challenging the patriarchal interpretations that have dominated the Christian tradition, these theologians have sought to reframe Mary as a figure of hope and transformation for marginalized communities. This ongoing debate over the meaning and significance of Mary's story highlights the profound impact that our understanding of this biblical figure can have on the lived experiences of believers, particularly women, within the Christian tradition. As we conclude our exploration of the forbidden truths about Mary, it is clear that her story is far more complex and multifaceted than the sanitized and idealized versions that have often been presented. By delving deep into the biblical accounts and challenging the layers of tradition and theology that have shaped her legacy, we can begin to uncover the true significance of this remarkable woman and her enduring impact on the Christian faith. Ultimately, the story of Mary invites us to grapple with the profound questions of faith, gender, power, and the limits of our own understanding. It compels us to approach the biblical narratives with a critical and discerning eye, to question the assumptions and biases that have shaped our interpretations, and to embrace the complexity and contradictions that are inherent in the human experience of the divine. In doing so, we may find that the forbidden truths about Mary are not merely academic exercises, but rather windows into the deeper truths about ourselves, our faith, and the transformative power of the divine in our lives.